This week, in a clash of titans, we've got Baldur's Gate 3, a Dungeons & Dragons adventure from Larian Studios, creators of the acclaimed Divinity series. And in the opposite corner, we have Starfield, a space exploration adventure and first new IP developed in 29 years by Bethesda, creators of Skyrim 3, 4, and 5, and Fallout 3 and 4. This is Civil War. This is the Good Game, Bad Game podcast.
This is a song I wrote about the Good Game, Bad Game podcast. Good Game, Bad Game podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Good Game, Bad Game podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, and joining me for this epic battle, he's a star man waiting in the sky, a rocket man burning out his fuse up there alone. It's my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
Wow, was that a David Bowie and a Elton John?
Yeah, I almost went for the double, like David Bowie. Like I was going to give you Whiplash. I was going to go David Bowie, and then I was going to go Elton John, and then I was going to go back to David Bowie and call you Major Mike, and I was going to be Ground Control. But then I was like, I'll save it for next week.
Yeah, that'll work. I'll remember that. Or I won't remember that, and it'll be exciting. That was intense. Holy, I've never been so fired up for an episode before.
Right, like I really wanted to get everybody in on a clickbaity title and like all this rage and a big war battle. But in all seriousness, we find ourselves in a really awesome and I don't know if unique is a fortunate scenario, because I play on PlayStation, you play on Xbox, and we both have been treated to, Baldur's Gate isn't an exclusive. It is going to come to Xbox, but as of right now, when it comes to consoles, it's only out on PlayStation. Starfield is only out on Xbox. We both partook in the early access. I paid an extra $10 on top of $70, so $80 to be able to play the game, I think 3 or 4 days early. And then I know you splurged on the expansion, so instead of just getting it free through Game Pass, you splurged on the expansion to be able to start it early as well. And so we just found ourselves in this perfect situation to be able to talk about these epic games and really focus on the positives of both of them, and point out any potential negatives and kind of try and see if we can work our magic to convince or deter people properly from getting games and setting people up with, I don't know the right word, an adequate or good picture of what the games are like. So I'm really excited. I'm so excited to hear about Starfield. I'm so excited to talk about Baldur's Gate. And yeah, should we just get into it?
Yeah.
All right.
Have at it.
So, do you want to start? Or
sure.
Do you want? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'll start. So I did start Starfield, and I paid for the expansion pass, which got me, I guess, 5 days early access. Now I started playing last Friday, and I think in a previous podcast, I wasn't sure what came with the Ultimate Edition expansion pass, other than early access and some other in-game stuff. Not that it matters now because it's already gone live, but it did also come with the first expected expansion on the game. So that's kind of what made me pull the trigger on it. And I didn't go crazy. I didn't really have a weekend to just play it nonstop like most people did. But I will say that I've played 5 hours and 40 minutes. And that shocked me because I feel like I've only played like an hour.
That's also, I feel like, that's a significant amount of time for you to have put into a game that you really only had your hands on it for, like you said, 5 days. And a weekend might boost those numbers potentially, but I would have been I wouldn't have been surprised if you would have said like 5 hours and had the weekend to like play. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, it's funny, I'm a big fan of short games, um, relatively linear games. And when I went on to the Xbox app to see how many hours I'd played, and I saw nearly 6 hours, I was pretty shocked for myself. But then I've also been seeing people on Twitter who are already like almost 2 days into it. I'm like, what?
yeah,
Like, is that what it is if you had a whole weekend to play it?
yes, it is for sure.
Um,
I can attest.
if I didn't have other things in my life, I probably wouldn't have it down, except for maybe the occasional Pikmin break.
A nice
They're
little like
both
palate
space
cleanser.
related. It's close enough.
I
It's
love it.
basically Starfield for 5-year-olds.
It's
Um,
an interesting selling point for Pikmin. Okay.
yeah, I think it's valid, and it's got land vehicles, so that's more than Starfield can say.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, God,
no, I was gonna say so. Uh, Definitely give like your first impressions, but I'm curious how you feel. People had so much negative stuff to say about Starfield, and I was curious like what some of your interactions with those things are. So you brought up no land vehicles in the game, and like how much does that actually hurt you? I don't know if you've like taken the time to try and hit the wall of like where you're like technically allowed to walk to, that people were up in arms about. um and like I was curious, like, do you ever see yourself really doing that? Have you tried to fly into the sun and get mad about that? All that kind of stuff. Like really take me through like what you've been like messing around with in the game.
I would love to know how much time it took somebody to get to the wall. Um, because to be honest with you, and this is both a plus and a negative, I guess. I'll talk about it more later, but um, I have landed on planets and the objective was so far away. And I have been like, how am I supposed to get to this? What am I supposed to do? There are no land vehicles. I certainly don't think I want to walk this entire
Hmm.
distance, knowing how big the map is. So you just kind of end up fast traveling. But I do think land vehicles would help the game significantly. I am kind of shocked based on how the game is laid out that there aren't any. Um, so it would definitely be a nice to have. And I guess it kind of leads me into my first real negative, and that's uh, I feel like I spent more time in loading screens than I have playing the game.
Oh wow, interesting.
Uh, I feel like all of my traveling I'm doing is through a menu, not through like anything on screen,
Gotcha.
and everything is fast travel.
So you
Um,
don't need to like unlock points of fast travel, like you're able to just
no, you just go.
interesting.
Um, I think maybe like the only thing you might have to do in some systems is like travel to an area of like a planet and then scan it, and then after you scan it you can fast travel to the planet because that's how you land. It's not like you just fly into the planet to land.
That's unfortunate.
You- yeah.
Crash a
And
crash landing every fucking time.
right, yeah, well, if you saw Alana Pierce's video you just kind of phase through it.
Oh, so is that for every? I thought that was just like Pluto for whatever reason. So you
I don't
can
know.
land on Pluto?
I have no idea.
Gotcha. Okay.
I have no idea the context there. I just assumed that instead of fast traveling to the planet she just tried to fly to it.
Gotcha. Okay.
um so yeah, that's my biggest negative right now, just to get that out of the way, is I feel like I'm playing a game of menus.
Okay.
Um, and my second big negative kind of goes in line with this. Uh, I don't think this game has no tutorial.
Just
The
kind of
only
throws you into it.
the only tutorial it gives you is like how to mine, and that's like the very opening of the game. I think that's really a spoiler, but they teach you how to mine, and then I haven't fucking used it yet, and I've played the game for 6 hours.
No way. That's kind of
So,
crazy.
but there's no other fundamentals, and I don't know if they just expect that you've like played another Bethesda game like this before, because I spent the first mission with relatively sparse ammo.
Hmm.
I felt so you kind of had to switch in between guns. Like every time I ran out of ammo, I had to like press start, go to inventory, go to weapons, change guns. Like I thought that's how I had to do it, and it took me like saying there's got to be a better way to find out that if you favorite items, you can put it into like a wheel
Yeah.
that you just use the D-pad.
And
And I had,
that is a Bethesda thing. And I'm trying to think if there's like another game where, because you know how
I
like,
assume Fallout is probably like that.
well, right, yeah, but like you know how like there's just like understood controls like R2 or
Sure.
like is like to shoot and is normally like the acceleration if you're in a car and like games like that, right? And like it's like even across the board. I can't think of another game that does something like that. Like I can think of like a weapon wheel, but like that it's like so different because it's like is it tied to like your like D-pad?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's what 12 options for things you can favorite,
And you
and
like
it's put
double
in like a
tap.
cross. Yeah.
Yeah.
And see, they didn't explain that. Um,
That's
which for
wild.
me, having not really played a Bethesda game, it just felt like they assumed I had. So that was frustrating, but I'm glad I figured that out relatively quick. Um, what else? Oh, in terms of traveling, I actually just found this out on Twitter, and it sucks. I'm trying to stay away from Twitter just so I can like enjoy it and not get caught up in all the drama
Nonsense.
that's going on with it. But
Hmm.
I've learned more from Twitter because like I saw someone complaining about having to have to just like go in and out of menus to travel. And you there's like this I forget what button it is. I think it's like left bumper, and you go into like a scanning, like you get a scanning overlay on your HUD. And apparently if you have that up and you're like floating in space, for example, and you look at a planet,
Hmm.
you can fast travel that way, and it doesn't take you out of the game until you get to the loading screen. So I haven't tried that yet. I just saw it maybe yesterday or today. Um, but that kind of made me a little more hopeful. But again, why wasn't that in a tutorial?
Yeah, you would think they would like cover all of these things in like the first time you fly and the first time you do this, first time you pick up a gun, and you would think that they would like and it's so funny because like honestly sometimes I just hate the hand holding, but there's
Mhm.
just none whatsoever here, it sounds like. So that's really interesting.
And especially when some of the stuff isn't intuitive,
Right.
at least not for somebody who hasn't played a Bethesda game before in depth, you know.
Right.
So yeah, it was that was really frustrating. It's just one of those games where you want to be like sucked into it, and that they do a very good job of that. Like you're playing the game, and it might as well be virtual reality because it's so absorbing.
Hmm.
But as soon as I have to go into a menu to fly away, it just pulls me out, and it's annoying. So hopefully now that I know that you can like scan and fast travel, um, that's nice, especially too like when you land on a planet and you go through a mission or whatever,
Hmm.
and you need to get back to your ship. They basically just tell you to fast travel back to it. Um, and I had struggled with that. And I basically just had to like figure out where it was in real life and then go to the map when I was pointing in that direction and like fast travel to like near where the ship was.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So those are my big complaints. I guess then to summarize, uh, I didn't understand fast travel at first, and they didn't do a good job of just teaching
various things.
anything,
Yeah.
anything. There is not a very good tutorial, and it's funny because now I'm seeing people be like, "Oh, if you go through the story missions, that's the tutorial, and then do a new game plus, and that's the real game." Then
But
it's
like
like, oh, okay,
you shouldn't really have like you shouldn't have to do that. And that was going to be kind of my question. Like uh, the 5 to 6 hours you've put into the game thus far, outside of loading screens and trying to just figure out and create your own tutorials, how have you been spending your time? Have you been doing like a lot of just like exploration? Because like Bethesda games are always those types of games that just give you like a trillion points of interest, and you just like you so quickly forget about the main story, and you just end up doing all these like fucking side quests, and like you somehow stumble upon like a civilization of, I'm thinking of like Skyrim. You stumble upon like a civilization of orcs, and next thing you know, you're freeing this dude that you like only just met, and like you just go down these like crazy paths.
yeah.
Have you been like doing that, or like have you been trying to do like all right, I'll do a couple of side quests, and then I'll try and do like a main quest, and then as a reward for doing one of the main quests, I'll go back and do a bunch more of the side quests and clean up stuff. Like, how have you been trying to split it up?
So far, just to kind of get my bearings, it's been a hodgepodge.
Hmm.
Um, and I should say, in the 5 hours and 40 minutes I've played, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything.
That
Um,
can sometimes be the worst part about an RPG, is that you feel like what have I done?
yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if I mean that in a bad way.
Right.
Um, I'd say it's a relatively neutral stance. Um, but I actually watched Greg Miller talk about it, and I think my game plan is I'm just going to get through the story and then go back and do everything else. I think with what I've learned about the game so far, that makes sense. I don't believe that like the game's going to feel like it's over when I beat the story missions.
Right.
So
I get that.
I think I want to beat the story as fast as possible. Like obviously, I mean you're right with what I've played so far. I was just like I thought I was doing a story mission and it was just like a side gig. It just got like thrown at me. I said, "Oh, okay, I'll go do that."
And like that was kind of the beauty of Skyrim when I played that. I mean, it's very like when you pull up the menu, it's very clear. It's like here's your main mission, or sometimes you have like three main missions at a time, depending, right? And like it lays it out, and then like it's all your side quests and bounties and whatever, right, underneath it. But so frequently I would forget. I would just like go to like points on the map or whatever, and like not actually go through the quest to set it as like the marker. And you would all of a sudden be doing a mission and you'd be like, oh shit, this is the main mission. And that was kind of the beauty of it, that it all just bled together. And it kind of bums me out a little bit to hear that like potentially the best way to play the game, or what a lot of people, yeah, because I've seen like Greg say it. I think Paris, who did his review with Kind of Funny, I think he said it, where it's like, trust me, just get through the main story, and then really it opens up everything else for you. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I kind of loved the beauty of like you could start doing something and suddenly realize like, oh shit, I'm continuing the main story like without even realizing it.
Right. And I think the way I see it, especially knowing that Phantom Liberty is coming out soon, um, I want to just get through the story and try to beat that before Phantom Liberty because then it's nice, right? Because then Starfield kind of just becomes my I want to go explore game,
100%.
and Cyberpunk can go to my I want to play the story
Yep.
game. And I think that's gonna be how I find harmony in that.
And I don't
So
think that's bad at all. Like I think that actually sounds great, right?
yeah.
Um, but yeah.
Um, and then in terms of other stuff, so that was really my negatives. I have a lot of positives.
Let's hear it.
Low hanging fruit. Looks good. Not not the prettiest game I've ever played, but uh, it depends on the moment. Character animations suck,
That's
which that
Bethesda.
yeah, that's just classic Bethesda. But like, I don't know. I like just landed on a random moon, and it was so cool. Like it was not to sound cheesy, but it was breathtaking. Like if I think I landed on like the solar systems, and the game's called the Sol System. I landed on Earth's moon. Earth's not there anymore apparently, but um
R.I.P. Earth.
yeah, what would we expect? But
Right.
it was really cool. Um
And then your adoring fan came into shot, and you were just like, way to ruin the moment.
no, I don't have an adoring fan. That's one of the perks you have to like set up at the
Yeah.
beginning. I did very neutral stuff, things that didn't really seem like they gave an incredible advantage and then also cause an incredible disadvantage.
Right.
But there are a lot of options. I spent a lot of time considering all that stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So, is it like a super robust character creation, and like how much time do you think you? Yeah, I know you said you did mostly neutral stuff, but like how much time do you think you spent in that?
I spent maybe 30 to 40 minutes, I'd say,
That's not. I mean, yeah, that's
in
solid.
terms of like creating my character, um, putting my perks and getting mad about pronouns. I'd say it's about 30 to 40 minutes.
Did you cut a quick video together about how you can't believe that politics are in the game?
Yeah, I just, as a straight white man, it makes me so mad knowing that um, there are gender options in a world that is what 300 years from now, or whatever it's supposed to be.
Imagine if like imagine what would happen to like you and I, for example, if like Star Wars was political in any way. I would hate to be, as they say, current date when watching Star Wars.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway, um, yeah. So character creation was really good. I only have a certain amount of patience for that. I don't need it to be perfect. So I could have spent more time. I just got what I wanted and then moved on. Um, and then sorry, just one thing I want to say about the graphics. I would say for the most part, I've been pretty well locked in at around 60 frames,
Okay.
and that's just a visual. I'm not running any stats or anything,
Right.
but it is smooth. It looks really smooth, and I've maybe only had stuttering 2 or 3 times, and it's been very very short bursts. And um, my favorite thing so far has been the combat, both land and space. It is so much fun.
Does gravity like really mess with it and allow you to kind of do some cool stuff?
Yeah, yeah, depending on where you are, like if you're inside or on a planet with low gravity, you can definitely use it to your advantage. I had one of the first fights I was in, honestly, there was a guy who was just kind of like hanging out in a corner and I couldn't get a shot on him, but the fight was outside at this point, and I literally just jumped super high in the air and shot him from above.
That's so sick. That's awesome.
Uh, so it's fun and it's not easy. I have gotten into a couple firefights now where I really struggled in terms of being able to defeat enemies that were a higher level than me and also maintaining ammo.
I gotcha. That makes sense.
I don't know if I'm just really bad at finding ammo in this game or med kits as well. I've run myself out of med kits quite a few times, but it's not really a cakewalk, and I don't remember seeing a difficulty option. I think it just kind of throws you in. I guess because it's level based, that doesn't really apply. But um, really fun having a great time with land combat, and then they throw you into space combat relatively quickly. And I was a little nervous about that before playing the game because I feel like that can be really hit or miss.
Definitely.
And I love it. There's also kind of like, be careful with how I phrase this. There's also kind of like ship stealth missions, and that's a really cool dynamic with some of the things you can do. Um, that being said, this is kind of a game where I just want to shoot everything and not be stealthy
Yeah,
for once. Is very against my character.
definitely.
Um, but it's just so much fun.
That's awesome. And that was going to be kind of one of my questions. Like, even though you're going the route of just kind of like guns blazing and, make it epic firefights and stuff like that, do you see the paths where it's like, I could see how I could like stealth this? Like, does it really feel like um you can play it your way and really like play it your own experience, or does it kind of feel like no matter what you do, it's inevitably going to end like X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, no, I think you can do it however you want,
That's good.
and you kind of figure that out from the get go with some of the perks that you can choose. Um, so I can think of a few instances so far where I could have stealthed through some things, or sometimes where I did when I didn't have to,
Hmm.
and um, yeah, just being able to have that robust experience is nice.
Yeah, the ability to kind of choose is definitely appreciated.
And I think too, so I was about to compare it to Cyberpunk,
Mhm.
but I think, and this is a popular Bethesda mechanic, the ability to like talk through situations too.
Mhm.
Like you don't necessarily need to like fight or be stealthy. There are times where you can just kind of like walk into the room.
Diffuse the situation depending, stuff like that.
Yeah,
That was going to be
and
one of my. Sorry, go ahead.
that's I don't know if you've seen them, but that's caused some funny videos that I've seen where um like someone opened a door into a room and just immediately threw a grenade thinking the enemy was going to be on the other side. And so they opened the door, threw the grenade, and stepped through the door and went into a cutscene, and they were just like, you were supposed to talk to the character.
Oh
You know
no.
how Bethesda does like the zoom in on the person's face you're talking to?
Yeah.
Well, it did that, but then the grenade went off.
Oh my god. That's
So
funny.
it's I've had instances like that too. Like I was doing a mission and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to like kill a certain person or just like if there was an option to diffuse it or have a conversation. So I just walked into a room and didn't do anything, and this whole room of guys just turned around and opened up on me like, "Okay, that's the answer to this question."
That's funny. Yeah, that's great. I was gonna ask like what's your like general build for your character, and like how are you trying to play it when it comes to like, are you trying to be the aggressor? Are you trying to like outwit people and like diffuse situations when possible? Or are you kind of just 50-50 flip of a coin in the moment?
I don't know that I've had a ton of situations where I really have a choice. Frankly, I will say, at least my perception to start in the missions that I've done, it's been mostly like just firefights.
Okay.
Um, I honestly don't know how I'm going to play the game. Like I said, I traditionally like kind of outsmarting enemy characters or being stealthy or like talking through things. But the combat's just so much fun.
Yeah,
Um,
I got that.
but I think resource management comes into play too. Like I've also done a bunch of missions where I've just had no ammo and no health kits, so I just avoid conflict as much as possible and just try to find resources and either in the course of trying to find resources, I get around enemies or I get enough resources to be able to fight.
That's great. Um, Last question that I have: are you learning to quick save or save frequently?
No.
And have you? Oh, okay. And have you felt like you've done something that you've quickly realized, oh shit, I didn't want to do that, and you quickly reload and act like it never happened?
No, but now you're making me consider that. I take it that's a popular Bethesda open world.
So personally, yes, with Bethesda games, I am saving so frequently. And like it was to the point with like Skyrim, if I was pickpocketing somebody, I would quick save before doing the pickpocket
Okay.
and then do it. And like if I failed, I would reload because I was just like, I am not fighting this person right now. So I just didn't know, like, I didn't
Gotcha.
know if that was the type of way, people call that save scumming. And I didn't know if like you were like leaning into it or if you were going to say like, no, you know what? Your actions have consequences. And,
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll say typically when I play games like this, I don't do that.
uh-huh.
Like with Cyberpunk, as much as I wanted to, um, I just let it go. If I mess something up, I mess something up, and then that's the story.
Okay.
I will say, uh, namely in Cyberpunk, there were times where just the dumbest shit would happen. It would piss me off, and I would quit. Like something that just felt unreasonable in a game.
Hmm.
So I imagine if something like that happens, I'll probably quit, but I'm not gonna like keep saving just to avoid that.
Gotcha.
Uh, just let the game play out how it does.
Totally reasonable. I like it. Anything else on your experience thus far?
Um, I will just, I guess, overall, I am really enjoying it. Uh, as I've said on this podcast many times, sometimes I think games are too big.
Hmm.
And so far, I have not had the feeling with this. Like, I want to keep doing things in game and just keep exploring it. So I'm really enjoying it. It's kind of out of my realm, and I'm enjoying it. So I think that kind of says a lot, at least in my instance, about how good the game is. I haven't had tons of bugs. A little bit of screen stuttering every now and then. Nothing crazy. Um, but yeah, overall, I'm having a really good time with
And
it.
it feels like a game you want to sink like a ton of time into.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Like I said, I want to get through the story, and then even when I'm through the story, I feel like this will kind of just be my almost like wind down game. I don't know. Like traditionally, that's Madden, where I just want I want to play video games, but I don't really want to like have too many objectives.
Hmm. Something you can just kind of dick around in for a little.
Right. And
Yeah.
knowing that I can just do that and not have to worry about keeping along with the story, um, I imagine that will hold quite a bit of weight for me.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And I was just talking to Shelby about this. We were talking about you, no big deal. But I was saying how you were saying to me that you were enjoying Starfield already. And she said something along the lines of like, I think she was saying that like the games that we're talking about today, like there's no animosity between us as we talk about these games because we're not gamers. And also, because like I'm genuinely excited for Starfield. And she was like, and I'm assuming Mike's excited to play Baldur's Gate. And I was just like, I don't think so. And she was like, oh, I just kind of, and I was like, Mike has only really played like he's never played another Bethesda game. Like he only has played Starfield now. Like he's bought Skyrim, but 9 times on different devices. But he's
Yeah.
he's like never actually like fully sat down and played through it. And I was like, and he never had interest in Fallout. And I was like, Mike doesn't like these massive open world games. And then I like immediately retracted that. I was like, no, that's not true. He does like them. He needs to be extremely selective of the ones he chooses. Cause I think back and it's just like, you can't say you don't, I can't say you don't like them. And then in the next breath go, Cyberpunk's one of his favorite games ever. You know
Right.
what I mean? And so it's like, but I get it, right? Like, because you have so much time that you can commit to games and stuff like that, and like you don't need a slog. So it really does need to be like the creme de la creme of an open world game. And I think that is honestly like a great like stamp for Starfield is to kind of get the mic approval because, to me at least anyway, that carries a lot of weight.
it's interesting too. I think a lot of it comes down to genre
Right.
and like futuristic or space or a combination of the two. And my brother and I were actually talking about that uh, this weekend as well. I can't remember if he said he was playing Baldur's Gate or we were just talking about like the comparison between uh, like Starfield and Skyrim or something along the lines of that. But he was kind of not that excited for Starfield because he doesn't really care about like the space and futuristic kinds of games.
Right.
But he really likes like the medieval games and things like that. And it's just so interesting. I mean genre matters. And
Definitely.
that's why I never really got into Skyrim. I don't care about that. The story doesn't keep me going. I'll recognize that it is one of the greatest games created of all time. It's just not for me. Um,
And
so yeah,
that's
I
totally
mean,
fair. I completely get that. And that was literally what I said. I was just like, Mike just isn't into like sword play. He never wants to sword fight with me. So
well, hold on. As long as it's futuristic,
right. So I was just like,
you want a sword fight in space? I got it.
oh, zero gravity sword fighting.
Yeah,
um, but no, I think that totally makes sense. But I'm very happy to hear that like in some ways it was a risk and it seems like it's going to pay off.
yeah. I will say too, like I haven't had the cyberpunk effect where the game didn't feel polished enough for me to play. Like when I first started cyberpunk and dealing with how big it was and frankly how average it felt,
Hmm.
that just wasn't worth my time. I have not gotten that feeling. Are there things that I feel could be better? Absolutely. It is
Sure.
not a perfect game by any means. Um, but there hasn't been anything so far where I'm like, oh, this is unplayable.
Right. That's good.
Um, yeah, I've been thinking about the question like if I had to give it a rating, what would I give it out of 10? Um, and that's kind of really hard for me because I saw IGN give it out a 7 out of 10. And I was like, fuck you.
I know. I was
And
like,
now I
IGN's out here giving us like I'm a 7 out of 10 is a fine score, and like
sure.
I don't care who gives it. That's a good score. Like people attach. We've talked about this a million times. People attach review scores to like letter grades, and that is just simply not the case. Um, but yeah, I saw IGN gave it a 7 out of 10. And I thought the same thing. I was like, "Fuck you, IGN. What are you like? What are you trying to do here? Like, you are the king and queen of giving 9 and 10 out of 10s to everything, which I myself am guilty of. I do that all the time. I constantly will give things probably a higher score than they deserve. And now you're gonna come out here with one of the most anticipated games. Not that that should be any like particular reason, but you're gonna call it a 7, and then people were like bringing up other games that were like a 6 or a 7, and I was just like, "Fuck you, IGN, no way."
Uh, yeah, and I saw some of the drama behind that, and it wasn't really like a team effort on the review. Um,
That's the other thing
and I
too.
was
Like these number scores, like it does come down to the individual, and so like,
right.
and when you really think about it, just not to get too into this because it truly doesn't matter at the end of the day, but
No,
you truly don't want every single like review site and everything to give it a 10 out of 10 because they're only going to be giving you the good, and nobody is going to touch on any of the bad because whether they're blind to it or like it's not worthy enough because the good is so much better to outweigh it. So when you get that, like all of a sudden you get that random 5.5 out of 10, like go read that because they're going to be brutally honest, and like they're going to be calling out stuff that is what turns them off from the game from their point of view. And like it's good to have these like various scores. And I think overall it's sitting at like an 88 on Metacritic, which is phenomenal. So
yeah, that's so. I will say this, and maybe this is kind of what I'll do over the next couple of weeks is give it a new review every week,
Okay.
or like a new review score, and we'll kind of see where I'm at by the end of it. I will say right now, about 6 hours in, I'd probably give it like a 77. I'm also going to be very granular, like it's going to be on a 100-point scale.
Love it. Love it. Get out of here, Washington Post, with your 4 out of 4. I thought Gene Park gave it a 4 out of 5, and I was like, that's surprising, but okay. No,
It
it's
was
out
like,
of
wait, what?
it's a 4 out of 4 stars. Who does that?
Gene, come on.
I don't think that's him. I think that's the publication.
Oh,
But he gave it a rave review. Okay, so yeah, like a high 70s right now.
yeah. Yep.
Great. Sounds like a good
And
game.
it's funny, I'm interested and I'm going to try to not bias it too much, but I was kind of following Gene Park the last couple of months, specifically on this.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, after his like good review was shared, he showed like his initial header for it,
Mm-hmm.
and he implied that he didn't think it was very good, early on.
Right.
Either.
Yeah. He gave it a really
Um,
good punchy headline too that I forget.
Yeah. So yeah, my big knocks, I think I've said enough, are just like I didn't know what the fuck I was doing for the longest time.
Sure.
And um too many like menus and loading screens. For a modern game, and also knowing like what Cyberpunk has been able to do. Not that Cyberpunk is the same scale, but it just feels like Bethesda's kind of leaning on mechanics that had worked for them before. And the only reason that's an issue for me now is that I've also found videos of people like traversing areas that there's normally a loading screen between,
Mm-hmm.
on foot specifically, and there haven't been any issues. So it's like, why do we need this? Why can't you just open the door and go into where it is?
Right.
Um, so yeah, sure, it's some game development thing. I don't know, but the overwhelming consensus has been that it's might not necessarily need to be that way, but redeemed by just how massive it is, how much it draws you in, and how good the combat is.
I love it. I love the idea of like giving it like a rolling score. Because until Phantom Liberties comes out, this is definitely going to both these games are going to dominate. I think for our playtime for each of us. So I think we'll do at least we won't do this like we're doing this week for each of them, but yeah, I think we'll have updates every week and give like good hearty updates for them.
That works.
All right, you ready to hear about Baldur's Gate?
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
All right. This game, I messaged you and I was like, this game is dangerous because it's finally a game that I feel like I can stay up all night to play. And like it happened to me the first night I was playing it. I go to bed like 11 p.m. typically, and I looked up and it was 1:30 and I did not want to stop, but I forced myself to stop. Like I could have kept going. To give the perspective, I did have a weekend to play games, and it was a holiday weekend, so I put 20 hours into the game already.
Oh my god.
Because it's really hard to put it down because it is such a blast. So I knew very little about the game going into it, other than like people saying it was good and that your companions are super horned up.
Bears and such.
Yeah, it is like a medieval or whatever fantasy you want to like consider that type of setting. It's Dungeons and Dragons, or it like runs off of like the Dungeons and Dragons rules basically. So you do have instead of just having your perception or luck or whatever like you might have in Starfield at a certain level to pass a skill check, you have bonuses added to dice roll to see if you pass a skill check. So there's a little more randomness to it, and you can be set up for success in certain ways. But if you roll a nat 1, you automatically fail. If you roll nat 20, you automatically succeed, stuff like that. So that's like a really fun mechanic. But given the setting that it is, you get a ton of options in terms of the type of character that you create. And that was actually something I wanted to ask you. Are there different like species and races in the game, or are you just like a human? In Starfield, sorry.
I believe you are just a human.
Okay, you can't be like a cat person.
I don't think so. Like,
Okay.
if that option was given, I did not see it.
So like that's an option in Skyrim, but like Fallout, I don't think had like you're a person from a vault, and
Yeah,
like
I
you can
haven't
like
seen any.
go ahead.
I haven't seen anybody else not be a human, and I also don't know if I've seen any like non-human NPCs.
Okay, cool. So yeah, like with Baldur's Gate, it's like what kind of class do you want to be? So do you want to be I don't remember all of them, but like barbarian, like so you're more of a brawler, and then you also choose your race, so you can be a human, you can be an elf, you can be a half elf, stuff like that, and like those give you like various benefits. So almost too many choices, and to kind of call a negative out there, if you're a new player, super daunting. But really, just everything that I read was just kind of like just pick something and stick to it, and you'll like learn it. And I definitely think that worked. And I went the route of like I didn't just go for what was considered easy, because like melee and just like a brute force type of character is typically seen as like the simplest like start. I instead decided to go the route of like what I've watched in various like fantasy IPs. And so I made my character a bard. And I just immediately started thinking like every situation that I'm like put into, I'm going to try and like relatively outwit or persuade or be charismatic, be charming into the situation. And try and like bards typically need to weasel their way out of things, and like that was very much what I wanted to do. And you can kind of set yourself up for that, which I thought was awesome. So I'm a bard, I'm a half elf, and I forget the reason I did that, but I think it was something to do with various benefits, probably with like the type of weapons you can use. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else relevant in terms of character creation. You get 3 or 4 options in terms of what you want your penis to look like, or what you want your vagina to look like. So that's pretty neat.
Amazing. Love that. Great customization. Was disappointed to not see that in Starfield.
There's no slider though, so it's just 4 canned options. You can't make your vagina bigger or smaller depending. But so character creation though was like fairly detailed. I'm kind of I think the same as you, where like I don't mess around with like sliders or anything too much. I don't worry too much outside of like give me a template head, and then I kind of just like roll with that look. And then like I'll change the hairstyle and like stuff like that, but that's kind of it. Like I don't get too in the weeds in it. But there's definitely like plenty of options, which was cool. And yeah, and then when it came to actually playing the game, the other thing, again with being a bard and trying to like create this charismatic character, and knowing that all your companions are super horned up, immediately started laying the seeds of my character's here to do 2 things and 2 things only, and that is to fuck and to suck. So I think it was like there's like I don't want to over explain things, but like
Please do, since we're talking about it.
You have like abilities and stuff, so you have spells and things like that, and you can only use so many spells. Like to start out, I think my bard had 3 spell slots, and then like one of the characters, and it's a level 1 spell, which is very important to like consider. And you have like 3 spell slots, And when you exhaust those, they're exhausted until you do a long rest. But then there's an option to short rest, and like certain abilities, like your melee weapon might have a specific ability that allows you to like daze an enemy if it lands. That you can recoup after a short rest, but you only get 2 short rests, and short rest will also heal you a little bit. You only get 2 short rests before you need to long rest, but short rests don't like bring back your spells or anything. So each time you want to like fully heal and get back all of your spell slots and stuff like that, you have to do a long rest, and you have to set up camp to do that. And in camp is when you get to like talk to your companions and like peel back some more layers to like various like story beats and stuff like that. It's super well done, super like detailed and built out in a way that like the world building is so good that like you actually want to exhaust all dialogue options. I think sometimes you get games where you want to just kind of click through and like yeah, get me to like the next thing, and that is not the case at all. It is engrossing. Like you like don't want to put it down. You want to keep peeling back these layers and like learning more about each of your companions, because they all come from different backgrounds, but you find yourself like needing to all work together. And in the camp is when you also try to the aforementioned fucking and sucking. And so like the first time I set up camp, I was like, holy fuck, I didn't realize this was a thing. So like I was like dying, right? Like over and over again. And also just like just like I didn't have any of my abilities. I was out of spells, and I was just like, fucking Christ, this is so hard. When do I get this stuff back? And I was like, I guess I have to long rest. And then like I did it. And then like I was in the camp before you like actually do it. And I was just like, oh shit. So that was crazy. I feel like I did way more than I should have done before my first long rest. And again, that's how the story will sometimes, certain parts of the story will continue, is like you end a day basically, and you kind of need to force that. The positive, to kind of go off of what you were saying, where like you felt like you didn't have a tutorial, this game has a super robust tutorial. It really holds your hand, but in an active manner. So it's daunting. It's a lot. There's a lot going on, and it's not so much that you like feel like it's an impossible game to pick up, because they do a really good job of explaining everything to you. And I think a little bit of a help is that I've watched D&D, like people play the tabletop game. And so like having a little bit of that knowledge helps. But I don't think it's like super necessary in order to pick up the stuff. It lays it out for you pretty quickly and effectively to show you how like the battling works and like the combat and stuff like that, because the combat is like turn-based. You have to like move people one at a time. You roll for initiative to like decide the turn order and stuff like that. They do a really good job of explaining everything, way better than I could possibly try to do. And, I'm probably missing so many of like the key beginning things. But it's great. It is phenomenal thus far. I literally want to just like get back into it and continue playing it. I'm trying to think. The one negative is that it's hard. It is not easy by any means. And so when I was asking you the question about like, are you having to save a lot? It's because I'm busy spending my time quick saving and like setting up full saves constantly, because it doesn't autosave a ton. And so if you die and have to rely on an autosave, you might be going back quite a bit. And so I'm quick saving constantly. Not quite to the level of like quick saving before picking somebody's pocket. But definitely, I did have a battle where I needed to quick save during turns, because if I would get like a critical miss, or if I would just miss an attack in general, it meant that I was not going to be able to finish the battle or win the battle. And it also meant that like I was going to soft lock myself out of like a story beat that I actually really cared about and did not want to like miss out on. So I've had to do some like manipulation there. And again, it's really hard. I've spent the 20 hours just like going back and forth over like the entire map, scouring for people I might have missed to either help or like battle with or fight to get more experience, because the story beat that I'm ready to continue is like recommended that you're level 5, and it does take a while to like level up. So I've needed to like spend a ton of time trying to squeeze as much experience out of various things. And the map doesn't just like show you points of interest. You need to discover them in the moment to do them. And it's not very forgiving in the sense that like you can be within range and it'll like, no, like you need to walk up to it for it to actually like start the mission or the interaction. It doesn't even begin to tell you that there's might be something over there. It's the main tell is like, I haven't been over there, so there might be something over there. So that's like it's hard is definitely like the one negative, but you can get a feel for how the game really scales as you yourself level up. So there were a couple of times where I had to fight level 5 enemies and they are just like kicking your ass. And I'm like, it feels like they just get like 3 attacks in a row. And then I just got everybody in my party up to level 5. And that's like a huge thing for like the barbarian. They get like this ability that if your main action is an attack, you get a second attack, like normal attack. And the one has it that if it lands a critical hit or a killing blow, it gets this like very specific bonus action that's an attack. Normally your bonus action is used to like heal or heal a team member or jump or move or whatever. Shove. It's normally not an attack that's going to do damage, but once you get to level 5, like you have like some of these like bonuses and stuff like that. So there's a lot of learning that you have to do on the fly too, and there's a lot to take in, which could be a deterrent, could be a positive. But you can really see how like the game scales, and it's just a blast. I can't get enough of it. I love it so much.
Have you had any experience with Dungeons and Dragons before this?
So I tried playing once during like the Panini, just as like a try and have human interaction. Let's hop on a call and try and play D&D on like Tabletop Builder or whatever. But that was very short-lived. And I feel like not a great introduction to Dungeons and Dragons, but I've watched there's a group, it's I think it's College Humor, I think is the group, but like they've like rebranded and now they're like Dropout, and they have I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but they have a series or a D&D group that's called like Dimension 20. And I've watched like a full season of their stuff. And so I think that like somewhat helps.
Gotcha. Okay. So you haven't really been integrated into the ecosystem before playing Baldur's Gate.
No, like I've never actually had my own opportunity to play it. And I feel like it gives like a really good experience because outside of having a friend or a real person talking me through the narration of the game, like it does feel like various Dungeons and Dragons experiences that I've seen.
Okay.
So it feels like an authentic experience. Obviously not playing it, I don't know that. But I also have seen people online say, who have had the experience, that they feel like it is an actual like fairly authentic D&D experience and like a way to experience D&D even if you can't get like a whole group together to play. And the other cool thing is that your party is always 4 people. This game does have multiplayer, so you can have it that like you go on like basically a D&D adventure with like 3 other friends. And one last thing, it does have split screen. So Shelby and I are probably, now that I have now that I'm starting to get my bearings, Shelby and I are probably going to start like our own playthrough where we each get to control our own like respective character.
That's just amazing that it has split screen. I don't know what to say to that.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy? I don't know what, like, I don't think it actually splits the screen, if you know what I'm saying, but
Yeah, just kind of like is that, and I'm blanking now because I know I've seen gameplay. Is that like an overhead view kind of game?
yeah,
Or is
like
it
you can zoom in that it's like roughly third person, but yeah, it's most of the time over the head. It's
okay?
not point and click though. I think it is on, if you play on PC, I think it's point and click to like move around. I could be wrong about that. You might be able to sync up a controller. But that's the nice thing is that like on PlayStation, when you're out of a battle, you are just moving your character around with the like stick, and it's very free flowing and very nice.
Okay, that's nice.
And you don't really like run up and like need to start immediately attacking somebody. It like typically it'll like stop. It'll stop you. It'll roll for initiative, and then it puts you in like the turn based like battling, and then it becomes point and click because you can only move so far. You only have so much range, so you can like click to where you want to go, and you like click on the person you want to attack, stuff like that.
Sure. I have someone in my life who's a really big Dungeons and Dragons fan, but he doesn't have PS5 or I don't know. I don't think he has a gaming PC, but I'd be really interested to hear his take
Yeah.
as someone who's like already integrated in the Dungeons and Dragons. Like, how do you feel about this? Like, would you rather just play Dungeons and Dragons? Is it a cool like complement to it?
Right, and I could see like I could see there's something better about like the authentic tabletop experience.
Sure.
And that's great, but I do think it does a good job uh of like making it feel random as much as possible. Like it does feel like you are at the mercy of a dice. Um or of the dice. You don't see every dice roll. If you're doing like a conversation or you're trying to pick a lock on a chest or whatever, stuff like that, you'll actually watch the like the die roll and it's awesome. And then it like adds in your bonuses if you have any and stuff like that. And like there have been so many times where it's like you roll a d20 and you need like a 10 is like typically the check, like the skill check. If you can roll above a 10, you'll pass. If you roll below it, sometimes it changes depending. Like if it's supposed to be a harder situation to get out of, it might be 15. But if you're good with persuasion, you might have like a +9 or something when you're all said and done on your roll. So you would only need to roll a 6 and you would still pass. And it's just sick. It's just so cool. How random it can be. And there have been times where I've had it in the bag. I needed to like a 5 and I rolled a nat 1. And it's just like, are you fucking kidding me? And so it's like something that was supposed to be a cakewalk and I ended up failing. And it's just like, okay. And for the most part, I've been trying to be at the mercy of that and not using like saves. And I've mostly been trying to just use them in situations where I've gotten like screwed over in battles and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's great. So it's like you can simultaneously get the experience of like using the die, but also like the most mundane checks. You're not sitting there waiting to see like if you like beat the score you needed to and stuff. So yeah. And I wonder if that's a setting you could turn on actually to like see, because it'll tell you what your like percentage chance of hitting on something is. And so it'll say like you have a 55% chance to do 2 to 9 damage or something like that. And like the one night it felt like I was missing on all of those opportunities. I was like, it's saying I have a 50% chance, 55% chance. And I feel like I have hit 0% of the times. And so it would be kind of cool to be like, well, you need a 15 and with all your bonuses and stuff, this is like where your odds are, but you rolled an 11, you rolled a 9, you rolled, you know what I mean? And like actually see like how things kind of fell. But yeah. And overall, I think there's a setting turned on automatically that like the dice are forgiving because you can't get you can't get like back-to-back critical fails. There's something like built into it intuitively to ensure that that doesn't happen, and you can toggle that on or off if you want like to again be completely at the mercy of it, or if you want to kind of have that like, all right, I don't want this to like beat me to a pulp. So but all said, this was a game that I completely took a flyer on. I mean, public opinion and like coverage of it has been extremely positive, so it was kind of an easy decision to make. But nonetheless, I was really flying in fairly blind, and this rivals my experience with The Witcher 3, another third game in a series where knew very little about it for the most part. I had heard public opinion was that it was supposed to be good or that it was good, decided to pick it up, and have had a blast with it. It's like, again, it's like all I can like think about. Like I really just want to play the game.
That's amazing. You know, when you texted me and said you had new game envy and you wanted to pick up Baldur's Gate, um, I was not entirely shocked. I wasn't sure if you had kind of picked a side of playing it early on or not, but I'm glad you did, and I'm glad you're loving it so far.
Yeah. Yes. I'm also very happy it paid off. But yeah, I did. I really did have new game envy because I was like, this motherfucker. And yeah, PC people get both. Shut up. You know? All I could think about was Mike is going to play Starfield. Everybody's going to get their hands on Starfield. And how amazing of a game. That's a game that I'm super excited for. I can't wait to play it. I just don't have the means to right now. And I was just like, I just feel like I'm missing out. I feel like I'm missing out on like some sort of excitement. And it's just like, you know what? I'm just going to pull the trigger on Baldur's Gate because that is a new game and it's something that I can be excited about. And it also set us up perfectly for doing something like this. So,
Yeah,
and
I'm glad you got it.
And it's paid off. And I now have something to fill the time until Phantom Liberty. And then we'll both be talking about that.
Yeah. And now I can live it vicariously through you, Baldur's Gate, that is.
Yeah.
Because I probably won't play it, but I'm super intrigued by it. That's the real pain of it all is that like I'm intrigued by it. I know it's gonna be if it doesn't win Game of the Year, it's gonna be in high contention for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I wish I could just get my stupid self to be interested in it because I do feel like I'm missing out on it.
It honestly, I mean, like, I think you would enjoy like watching it. You know what I mean? Like, it might be something worthwhile trying to like find a playthrough at some point and like, and try and just like watch it in general. And maybe like that would work for you. I don't know.
It's something, at least until I watch a playthrough and it's just somebody fucking the whole time.
Yeah, and then you're just like, no, hang on a second. Maybe I do need to get this game. No, that kind of rolls into like the kind of last part of this is like I want to highlight or I want us each to kind of highlight like why should somebody buy Starfield? I'll highlight why should somebody buy Baldur's Gate and then maybe go into like why you shouldn't buy it for each of them as well. So why should somebody buy Starfield?
I it's hard for me. I wish I could tell you that the story was part of the reason, and it very well could be. I have no idea. I have not gotten that far yet. That might be like a full-on review kind of answer.
That's fair.
But you feel like as soon as you boot it up, you feel how massive this game is, like both in a physical sense and also in just like what it means for gaming. And it's one of those rare games that we've had this generation that's like, okay, this is it. You know, it builds off of all the other Bethesda games, Skyrim and Fallout and all that. and you feel kind of the momentum behind it. Gameplay, in terms of like when you're actually in the middle of a mission, I'll say,
Mm-hmm.
is great. The amount of freedom that you have. I don't know if you saw the video of somebody like stacking potatoes
Yes.
in the cockpit of their ship.
Yeah.
You can do that if you want. It literally, it's one of few games in my life where I have felt I can go through every door, I can pick up every item. Um, it just feels so interactive, which is something I've rarely gotten in any games that I've played. Um, and I believe that some of the other bugs or just understanding that if you haven't played a Bethesda game before, that you'll kind of learn things as you go. Like I feel like those small issues will be worked out over time, either by the team or like just personally. Just you learn as you go, and it's
Yeah.
frustrating because then you think about what did I miss because I didn't know this one small fundamental. Um, but yeah, you can just you'll get sucked in, I guess, is my long story long answer, without even really trying. Just as soon as you get into it, um even if the story doesn't do it, just the amount of exploring you can do.
And the overall world that's around you.
Right.
Nice. For Baldur's Gate, why you should buy it? If you've ever had any inkling of like wanting to play D&D, I think it scratches that itch. And I can say that the story is like very good, so I can use that as one of the reasons. The story is like super engaging, and you can potentially have consequences for your actions, which can kind of ruin or benefit you in the long run. But if you want a game that'll suck you in as well, and really like get you fully engaged in it, you should buy Baldur's Gate 3.
It's a very good pitch.
Now, why shouldn't you buy Starfield?
um I would say the main reason for not getting it is, while it does a really good job of sucking you in, it does uh, almost equally, if not equally, a good a job as taking you out of the game. And by that I mean, um, it, like I said earlier, just feels like you're playing a game of menus, and the only time it feels like you're doing anything is if you're like choosing to walk around a planet, or you're in a mission.
So, just as easily as it can suck you in, it can pull you out.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Let me think. For Baldur's Gate, I would say you shouldn't buy it if you don't like fantasy. Like
There you go. Easy enough for me.
that's an immediate, right? Like if you don't care about fantasy worlds and stuff like that, you should not buy Baldur's Gate. And if the idea of um a more random system outside of like you increase your strength and you can pass a strength check. If the idea of like you can upgrade your strength, but it doesn't make anything automatic ever. If that sounds terrible to you, you should not get Baldur's Gate. There's still a bit of randomness to it in some ways. But those would be like the main two things. Like if you don't like turn based, if you don't like well, is that really turn based? What's that called? Like what are the XCOM games? You know what
Are
I'm talking
they?
about?
Yeah. I mean, I think XCOM is technically turn-based, isn't it?
I thought there was like another
Or like,
another word for it, or like the Mario plus Rabbids games.
I haven't
Basically,
played those.
if you
Like a strategy game?
yeah, yeah, I guess it's like turn based strategy. I don't know, but anyway, if you don't like those, then this is also not for you, because it's not free flowing combat where you just run up and start mashing X and you start swinging a sword or anything. Like, it's very methodical at that point, and it does slow it down. Not enough to be a negative for me, but I could see why somebody wouldn't like that.
Makes sense.
But overall, it sounds like we both had extremely positive experiences with each of our games. And at the end of the day, all I'm going to say is just remember, these are simply just opinions.
Yeah.
Everybody is obviously going to have their own, and certain people, I mean, this couldn't be a more perfect example, because of the fact that, like, you typically don't love, like, medieval or like fantasy type worlds. And so it's just the prime example of, like, this game's great and I could give it a 9, I could give it a 10, I could give it whatever, and that should mean fuck all to you, because at the end of the day it should come down to what are your personal preferences. So that's kind of just like a PSA for everybody when it comes to looking at review scores and stuff like that. Just remember that everybody's going to have their own opinions on various aspects of a story, of a game, stuff like that.
And might
that's
not be willing to expose those biases.
right.
You know, someone could, if Starfield were, I'll say, essentially the same theme as Skyrim, you could see a whole different wave of reviewers giving it a good score, and then you'd see people like me who are like, overrated.
Right.
So it's all preference. Just, if you have any interest in a game and the reviews don't say that it, like, unanimously, like, don't buy it because it's unplayable, then give it a shot.
Yeah. And try to ignore reviews. Try not to just, like, try not to ride or die by what somebody else says. Like, I think it's worth saying that, like, if there's a general consensus that you can tell people are saying to stay away from something, then, like, yeah, you probably should. But at the end of the day, if it's something that interests you, I mean, imagine if I wouldn't have played Saints Row, and I know that people still think it sucks, but, like, I loved Saints Row, like, and I have my own biases there and everything to go with it, but I still had a great time with it. And imagine if I would have, like, let other people and their negative reviews and outlooks on the game, like, impact me. I would have never played it, and, like, that would have sucked. So
And think, if you would have paid full price, then Bullish wouldn't have gone out of business.
I paid full price and then some, because I got, like, the premium edition so I could get the DLCs. I don't want to talk about it. Great. Well, this was fun, and I'm really excited to, like, keep talking about these games. I think it's so unique for two games like this to share a release date, like these two games did, even though technically Baldur's Gate was out on PC already. But for both of these games to hit console players technically on the same day for public release is super unique, and I think it's going to be fun to continue to, like, talk about our experiences within them as we play games that, like, whether it's simply because you can't play it right now, or if it's just because you wouldn't play it even if you had the opportunity, and then the fact that you're playing a game that I can't play. It's really fun to be able to, like, talk through these games and share our experiences that we know the other, at least for now, can't experience. And I think it'll be fun to continue updating and do, like, a rolling review for each of them as we keep going. And then Phantom Liberty is going to be out, and nothing else will matter.
Nope. Well, what's Starfield?
Which I can't wait for the first episode after Phantom Liberty. That'll be a blast. We'll probably spend just as much time both talking about a single game as we did each talking about our own game.
Yeah, I'll see if I'm curious to see how many hours I'll be able to put into Phantom Liberty. I mean, depending on, I forget what day it launches on, and then when we have to record, like,
That's true. That might play into it a little.
if I have time, I imagine I will get pretty far in it.
Let me try and see.
We shall see.
What is the actual release date?
I have 29 in my head. that's September, that'd be a Friday. So might make sense. It's October, it's a Sunday.
It is 9/26.
Okay, so that's the Tuesday before. Hey, so that might give me a week.
So we probably, I was gonna say we probably won't talk about it for the 28th episode, and I think we're gonna have, I think Tokyo Game Fest is, or the Tokyo Game Show is the weekend prior to the 28th. So we'll probably be talking about that. So yeah, so it'll be expect on the 5th for us to talk a good deal about Cyberpunk, because then we'll both have had like a week's worth of time to try and get time into it. Great. Well, if you have been so lucky to have played both Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3, let us know what your opinion are of the two of them, and what your likes and dislikes for each are. And if you've only gotten your hands on one of them thus far, still let us know. Let us know what you've been enjoying. Let us know maybe what some of the changes you'd like. Definitely excited to hear what other people's thoughts are on both of these. Said it at the top, Titans, absolute Titans. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. As always, if you could leave us a rating or a review wherever you listened, be greatly appreciated. Other than that, share it with a friend, share it with somebody who's played either of these games, so they can hear us talk about our opinions. And we'll talk to you next week.